Now, welcome to a very special edition of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast, brought to you by Yoshimura. I'm Jason Wygant, and we are going racing. It's not rumored, it's not talked about, it is for reals, yo! May 31st through June 21st, the final 7 rounds of Monster Energy Supercross for 2020 are really going to happen. We're going to be in Salt Lake City for all of these rounds. We knew that we'd probably be in just one place for all of them. For a long time, it was thought to be Glendale, Arizona. Then at the last second, we heard, Glendale might be off. They're working with St. Louis and Houston, I think, were the next two. And then next thing you know, it's Utah. There are some details in this podcast you'll hear that lean things toward Utah. This is what I've kind of heard. You'll hear a little bit of it in this podcast, but I've gotten a little more info. What I believe happened was Salt Lake City and Utah right off the bat said, if you're going to come, you're going to have everyone that comes into the state test for COVID-19. A couple of other states were maybe not going to have that requirement, but as they got closer and closer to the dates, it appeared that every state was going to require that. And in that case, you were back to even footing, and Utah was willing to say yes to May 31st. So if you got a test anywhere, and you have one city saying, come on in, we'll give you a solid date right now, you want to take that up. I'm sure there were a bunch of other details, but bottom line is Salt Lake City will be the host of all 7 rounds of this, and I cannot tell you how big a deal this is. Now, there is one unfortunate side effect here. There will not be fans allowed at these races, and obviously the very, very point of Supercross, the whole idea was to take what's so appealing and fun and exciting about motocross racing and to put it in a building so it's enjoyable for fans. They can see the whole track, they get amenities, all that. Supercross is designed around the fans. That's what it is. It's fan-friendly motocross. But these are the present circumstances, and I give credit to Feld Entertainment, who does admit, you'll hear it in this show, their primary source of revenue is ticket sales. They're willing to do these races without that. Now, you don't have to cry poverty for them. I'm sure that with the TV deal, it allows them to get paid by the series sponsors, so there had to be some financial incentive for them to do this. But still, it's not going to be nearly what the season could have been for them from a revenue standpoint. What this does do, with getting these races back, it absolutely positively, it could save these race teams. Because what you might not have heard behind the scenes, because the financials never get talked about publicly in this sport, is as soon as the racing stopped, a lot of sponsors stopped paying. A lot of riders saw their salaries cut or just taken away altogether. Staff got furloughed, whatever, mechanics, technicians, team people. It got very scary for a lot of people really quickly. So to get these 7 races back, and then for every team and every sponsor to say, hey, we expected to do 17 races, and we're going to get 17 races, has a major financial, economic impact on this industry and on this sport. So I am going to say kudos to the folks at Feld. Now, for me personally, I don't have a dog in the fight. I get paid by Racer X, so far at least, whether there are races or not. So I'm not getting paid to be biased here, but I do know there are a lot of people that getting to go back to work is huge, and it's going to happen. Not just rumor, but it is stamped. So today we'll have Dave Prater on, the Senior Director of Operations Two-Wheel from Feld, and he took calls on a media roundtable that I was included in last Friday. I didn't know if we'd be able to run this as a podcast, but I give huge credit to Sean Brennan, the PR man for Supercross, for releasing this audio and telling me this Monday afternoon that I can indeed release it as a podcast. So thanks to those guys for holding the roundtable and for letting us run all the audio completely unedited. And a shout out to our sponsor, Yoshimura. They've been here the whole time, more than 2 years with this podcast and more than 100 episodes. They got that new Chileo pedal, which is made in the USA. It's a flat pedal, highest end one you can get. Put it on your mountain bike, your BMX bike, or for a choice few of us, you can even run it on a road bike. I guess people do that. And also, of course, Yoshimura-RD.com for your exhaust system needs. And also check out our website, RacerXOnline.com. We posted a really cool new video edit riding in the desert that Yoshimura put together. And speaking of Racer X, we still have that ultra cheap subscription deal going. 99 cents for 3 digital issues. That's 3 months, or $2.99 for print and digital. We've got the digital edition of the magazine integrated right in with our website. So if you access it for 99 cents, you can read it anytime, anyplace, anywhere. It looks good. It reads good. And by the way, our time from putting a magazine to bed, as they would say, from finishing it and then getting it back from the printer, it only takes like 2 weeks. So some magazines your wife might be getting a magazine that still hasn't even mentioned the coronavirus lockdown, which shows you that those magazines are like 3 months behind. We're only 2 to 3 weeks max. So the magazine is still pretty up to date. For example, there's a story on what the teams are doing during this lockdown written by Mathis, talking about Kawasaki. So it's interesting. Go to racerxonline.com/subscribe now. Pay hardly any money and get all the access. Okay, so let's get to it. I give credit again to Sean Brennan, PR man for Supercross, for putting this Zoom call together with myself and about a dozen other motocross journalists. And Sean is actually the one you'll hear at the very beginning greeting all of us, and then he'll swing it to Dave Prater, and then they open it up for questions. Enjoy.
All right, so everybody, welcome. Thank you all for being here. It has been a trying 2 months, and we're super excited to make the announcement that we did yesterday, and looking forward to resuming our championship here, the final 7 rounds in Salt Lake City. Again, we wanted to make sure that we were here to answer any questions. We know that a lot of information in it, but we know that the fans, as well as you guys being the primary storytellers out there, we wanted to be able to answer any lingering questions that you might have, so that you can answer those as efficiently as possible. So, man, that has been in the thick of this since March, long before things started in Indianapolis. Mr. Dave Prater, Feld Entertainment, Senior Director of Two-Wheel Operations.
Thanks, Sean. And I just want to start off by saying this was truly a team effort. Team meaning Feld Entertainment, the AMA, MX Sports, some of you, most of you on the call, the Oems race teams, our partners. If that either I've been on the phone with you, you've been texting me ideas, sending me articles. So again, it's truly a team effort. I can't say enough about the AMA and the race teams that we've had constant communication with throughout this entire process, as well as multiple state governor's offices, multiple venues. There's been a lot of people working extremely hard behind the scenes. So can't say enough about it. But we were excited. Sean mentioned it, but yesterday, obviously, we made the announcement we're going to be able to go to Salt Lake City starting May 31st and get the final 7 rounds of the 2020 championship season in. And that was all along. That was our intent. That was our goal. Spoke to many of you on this Zoom call months ago and told you that was the goal. That was the intent. And we're happy to say we're going to be able to get that accomplished. So first and foremost, we want to do it for the fans. Supercross fans are diehard. They're passionate, and they expected 17 rounds of racing, and we had only delivered 10 rounds up until the point where we had to cancel Indianapolis. So that was definitely our driving force. That's what runs this industry. It's what runs all of our prospective businesses. So that was our top priority. And then secondly, as stewards of the sport, we felt like it was important to get the industry back to work. The Supercross industry, as you all know, is heavily, if not completely, reliant on us doing events and doing races. So that was another thing that kept pushing us, was the health and the integrity of the sport, not only in 2020, but as we transition and get back to normal in 21 or 22 and into the future. So just extremely happy to do that. Also got to obviously thank the governor of Utah, Gary Herbert, the Utah Sports Commission, Utah Department of Health Services, and Rice Eccles Stadium and the University of Utah. So they've been working extremely hard since the possibility of us going there came up. They've just been grinding away at it as we have. So we were going down parallel paths with about 5 different states and 5 different venues. And I can't say enough about all of those venues and all of those governor's offices and health departments. It was an eye-opening experience as to how hard those folks work and also what kind of challenges they're up against during this coronavirus pandemic. So it's been great. It's been a challenge, but we're just happy to move forward and get back to as close to normal as we can soon. And it's my belief that eventually we are going to get back to normal. So excited. And then finally, just to give you kind of a brief overview of the plan. So we've obviously got a restart plan, a COVID-19 prevention plan in place. The restart packet will go out to individuals this weekend that we are expecting to be at the event. It's going to include a health and safety commitment as well as a health questionnaire. They'll have to sign that and send those back prior to being admitted. Then once we are in the state of Utah, everyone that will be within the secure perimeter of the event will be required to do a COVID-19 test, and then obviously get that negative reading for COVID-19 before they're permitted inside the hard perimeter of the event. And then each day, just touching on it quickly, but each day temperature checks will be done prior to entering the perimeter. Face mask will be required at all times while on site. And then obviously social distancing will follow throughout the 3 weeks we're there. We're excited. Still got a lot of work to do. But we've got the green light, so here we go.
All right, so we're able to open it up to the media. Ralph, I guess you had the first question, so you can fire away, my man.
Okay, Dave, the biggest thing I get asked all the time is, with the 7 rounds, will we do different track designs on Sunday and Wednesday? That's probably the biggest thing I hear from the fans right now.
Yeah, so that's the point. That's the point. If we can, so we've got track diagrams. Obviously, we have a 2 day gap between some of the races. That's going to be a tight turnaround. So you may not see as different a track as you would going from Indy to Salt Lake, but it will be a different track. The lanes may be the same, different obstacles, but yes, to answer your question, there'll be 7 different track diagrams.
Thanks.
And guys, please go ahead and identify your name as well as which media outlet you are with. And there is no order of questions here, so please go ahead and just jump in.
Chris from
Maybe we need an order.
I'm getting. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, how about we have an order?
Yeah, I can't.
Who is that?
If you're not talking, just put yourself on mute.
Yes.
Otherwise, it'll be impossible.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you, Josh.
Can I go?
Go,
Go ahead.
Jason.
All right, I win. Sorry, Iser. Dave, explain how the riders and teams will have to operate. Are they going to be staying in Utah? Can they leave and test and train between races? How's that whole process going to work?
So they can leave Utah. The challenge is going to be that if you leave the state of Utah, you will have to be retested for COVID-19. And that turnaround time, while we're trying to expedite it, the turnaround time at the moment is 48 hours. So with the cadence of the races being every 2 and 3 days, it's going to be a challenge for them to leave the state of Utah and come back. Now the East-West, that can be done because the cadence on that are the first 3 rounds will be east, the next 2 west, then back to east, and the final is the east-west showdown. So obviously the east-west athletes and mechanics could leave and come back.
When they have is the testing done there, or does the test have to be done prior to arriving at the event, or can you do the test in Salt Lake?
You'll be required to do the test in Salt Lake. So,
Okay.
Yes.
So you'll have tests available, and that would even include those of us that would be attending also. So there'll be tests to do there?
Yes. So we'll do, so the state health department will do the test, and it's exactly what you guys have seen on the news. It's a drive-in testing. So we'll drive up, get the test, and then once the results are back, they'll be emailed to the individual.
But they'll have to be tested and then have 48 hours for each individual race.
No, for as long as you don't leave the state of Utah,
okay.
That one test will suffice.
Gotcha.
Chris Cooksey. Hey, so what happens if, say, like Eli Tomac tests positive with 1 race to go? What do you do? Are we sitting him out? We letting him race ill? What's going on there?
He will, yes, if that happens, Chris. So, not to get too specific, but if you test positive, there's a 72-hour window. Within that 72-hour window, if you do not, if your temperature does not reach 100.4 degrees, then you can retest at 72 hours. If you get a negative test, you're good to go. If you get a positive test, then you quarantine for 14 days. So the long and short of it is, yes, if an athlete tests positive, it will be treated just like a concussion or anything else. They'll set out.
Wow. And then with Jason Anderson suffering altitude stuff, is there any WADA exceptions for him, or has that been brought up?
I can't really speak to the WADA exceptions. I know, I believe, obviously, he could apply for a TUE, therapeutic use exemption. However, I believe Jason has a plan. I spoke to Rockstar Husqvarna yesterday, and when the initial announcement went out to the teams, obviously Jason was a bit stressed, but got together with everyone, and he's got a plan to acclimate. So I think it's going to be fine. At least the last phone call I had with the team, it sounded like everything was status quo and fine.
Dave, we know that there was a lot of cities, like you talked about, a parallel plan with other cities for holding these 7 rounds. What tipped the scale for Salt Lake City? What was the determining factor? What sort of clinched us going to SLC for these 7 over anywhere else?
Quite a lot, Steve, but honestly, it came down to the green light and who would give us the green light first. And obviously, it helps that we've had a long-standing relationship with the Utah Sports Commission and the governor, and those guys just working their tails off to come up with a plan to keep everyone safe, not only keep everyone that participates within the event, but keep the city of Salt Lake City, the residents, as well as Utah residents safe. So that was really it. That's what tipped the scale. The other states we were working with were working just as hard, but it just ended up that Salt Lake was the one that gave us the green light first.
Hey, David, MXS. Hey, Steve, do you have another question? Go ahead.
No, go next, honest.
Okay. Is there a doomsday scenario if we don't get these 7 races in? Will the champions be decided on the existing points, or will you somehow try to push this into the fall to finish it?
No, I think, and I don't want to use the term doomsday, but if we don't get these 7 races in, we will call it at whatever point we get to. With MX Sports and the outdoor motocross season coming up, and again, we've been working closely with Kerry and Davey Coombs. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how they're going to have to shift their schedule. So we need to leave those September, October dates open in the event that they need to use those. So it would be too difficult to predict that. So if for some reason we cannot get these 7 rounds in, we'll call the championships at that point based on however many points they've scored.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave, it's Tyler Tate. I can, being here in Utah, I can add a little bit more on what it's like here in Utah for those that are coming here, and what to expect and what not to expect.
All right.
Is that a question?
I know there's a lot of people, wanting to know what there is to expect here and what why we were able to give the green light a little earlier. We've really slowed down on cases here, mostly due to the fact that the University of Utah and the Intermountain Health System began a process with all the tech industries that are here to create testing about 5 weeks ago. And they did rapid testing and tracking to where they knew where the hotspots were, being West Valley, a few areas in Salt Lake County, and then mostly up in the Park City area. Everywhere else stayed very, very, very minor, and they were able to test and track. And so starting tonight at midnight, we're moving, when they have the color codes of red, orange, yellow, and then, back to whatever the new normal is, we move to yellow tonight, meaning that most places can be open, upwards of 50 people in gatherings and things like that. It really came down to a lot of the tech industry here and rapid testing. Almost every single hospital here has a drive-through testing facility. And so the access has been incredible here. And I think that's why you were able to. So we haven't had more than 2 deaths in 2 weeks. Everything's been very, very minimal. And that's really why, what to expect out here, that it does exist, but it's been well monitored. They've had daily, if not twice daily, press conferences from the health department, and the governor's office has really created a strong 4-step plan on how to slow the spread down and how to position the state for events, even from an economic standpoint.
How are you going to track the athletes?
I'm sorry, what's that?
How are you guys going to track the athletes in between races to know who left and who didn't?
Again, I think it's going to be tough as far as the cadence of the races to know to leave and come back. So, but as far as tracking athletes, they're going to sign that health and safety commitment, and we're going to take them at their word that they're going to do that. So if you leave the state and you come back, obviously if it's a flight, we'll know. But other than that, we're going to take them at their word. But just quickly, Tyler, just to touch on what Tyler said, thanks for that detail. But I would agree with all those points. Again, I'm not the expert. The health department and the governor's office are. But long story short, Utah has met the gating criteria, which all of the states we were working with, were doing as well. And there was a few times when that gating criteria was reset, and that was another factor in some of the places that we weren't able to get to. But again, just excited about Utah, and the relationship we have already is just going to make it that much stronger and that much more efficient as far as going through these 7 races in this 3-week process. Because obviously we've got the green light, but we've got a lot of work ahead of us still.
I heard the Dan Moto XX. I heard him mention 50 people gatherings. Is there a limit to how many people you guys can have in the stadium?
So we were approved for 900, and that's the hard perimeter. That is not the stadium. So the stadium will be 400 at a time. So that was what we were approved for. Now, they're going to be in this plan, this restart packet that we're going to send out here this weekend at the latest, but most everyone who will be in attendance will get it later on tonight. But that plan will detail functional groups. So for instance, a functional group would be a race team. And within that functional group, you want to keep it to 10 or fewer. So if a race team, may have 15 people, but they're going to have to figure out how to keep one functional group and stay 6 feet apart. So let me put it this way. 2 riders, Adam Cianciarillo, Eli Tomac. A race team has 50, Kawasaki has 15 people. they're going to split those into 2 functional groups, but we're only looking at it as the race team as one functional group. Ralph's on the call. Ralph and Ricky will be a functional group of television broadcast talent, along with Will and Daniel Christine. So those groups will be together. Those groups still need to abide by the 6-foot social distancing, but there will be limited to no access or interaction with other functional groups. So again, it's all spelled out in this packet, but it's a well thought out plan, and the health department and the governor's office have been instrumental in developing.
How are hotels and stuff there in Utah? Is everything good to go as far as where we can stay? And
the governor's office and the health department are going to give us a list of hotels. It's going to be a limited list, so we expect that any time now, today. So once we get that, the folks that are going to be in attendance will be given that list, and they can book accordingly.
That's a big question I have for you, Dave. Do I need to stay in a hotel, or can I stay at my house?
No, you can stay at your house.
Okay.
They've also agreed to motorhomes. So if an athlete or a team manager, anyone working the event, has a motorhome, personal motorhome they're going to stay in, they can stay in the motorhome, as well as a house or rental or Airbnb, as long as we have the address of where that is.
And if I've been tested ahead of time, can I just bring that with me? Because I have to get tested on a regular for my wife being in the military.
Yes, Tyler, you can.
Okay, thank you.
So should we show up 2 days early so we can get tested and get cleared before going in the event for that 48-hour window?
Yes, that would be what you would have to do.
Okay.
Regular program, Dave, with the riders. We saw 40 riders invited, so no qualifying, but 2 qualifying practices and a regular practice, and then right to the night show as usual.
Yeah, that'll be as usual. We're still working on that, Steve, as far as the actual time frame for those and how we're going to run it. But it's been interesting because when we started these conversations, that there was a possibility we'd go back racing on a tighter cadence of races, 2 races per week as opposed to 1 race a week. The initial input from the teams was we wanted abbreviated qualifying sessions, abbreviated practice, and go from there. And as we've gotten closer, it's gone the other way. So there still will be a free practice and 2 qualifying sessions. We're just working on what the timing of that will be.
Follow up, if I can. Do you anticipate? I know, with the series being interrupted and the East Coast guys maybe not wanting to make the trip and stay there the whole time, and maybe the guys that don't have a hope of making a main don't want to go there, et cetera, et cetera. Do you anticipate 40 guys in each class? Is that the kind of interest you're getting?
Yeah, right now that's the feedback we're getting from the AMA, that we'll have 40 guys in each class. So that's the feedback, and that's the goal.
Are you going to have alternates ready?
Well, that's back to, I'd have to defer to the AMA. That I think the challenge with that is those alternates are going to have to be ready and go through that same process. So say we get to round 12, which would be round 2 in Utah, and an alternate wants to come in. That's, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure the AMA is of the same opinion, that's fine, but you're still going to have to come in 48 hours prior, get your COVID test, and have the negative result, follow the same protocol anyone else would.
And
Dave, sorry, just to ask you a question. MotoGP are getting ready to go behind closed doors in July. MXGP have already said they can't run events without fans. How difficult has it been for you guys to, make this happen behind closed doors?
It's been extremely difficult to make this happen. I can tell you, obviously, I don't think it's come up, but I think it goes without saying we're doing these 7 races without fans, and for Feld Motorsports, that is our main source of revenue, are the fans. So Again, back to my earlier point, we're doing this as stewards of the sport and for the overall health of the Supercross world and industry. So it's going to be a challenge. It has been a challenge, but it's been our desire from day one to get back to racing and get out there with or without fans. Obviously, we would prefer we have fans in there, but given the current circumstances, we're going to do the best with what the situation presents and move forward.
Thanks.
Hey, real quickly,
Dave,
wait a sec.
the first motorsport
Wait, Ralph.
Ralph.
Sorry.
That's okay. Hey guys, I just want to reiterate that, all of these questions should be, about storytelling, providing information to fans, and behind the scenes type of things. We will be sending out protocol as well as media access. I know that it's not anybody's surprise that our media on site is going to be very limited. So, yes, we will have to abide by all of these same things, but that is not what this call is about. We will be in touch with you as to what media protocol will be in place and who will have access. So please keep your questions, focused towards the athletes and the teams and, functional groups, things like that. Yes, we will have as well, but all of that will be forthcoming. Go ahead, Ralph.
Okay, well, hopefully this question is acceptable. The first event that took place after the shutdown in the country was a short track sprint car race, and it went off up in South Dakota pretty smoothly. And a few smaller short tracks have opened up since then and have been somewhat successful in holding events. NASCAR will be the first major league sporting event of any kind taking place this Sunday. Then they'll have a couple of races just before we go. Supercross will literally be the second major sports league to hold an event with the roof kind of coming off of this and the world starting up a little bit. I think it's a huge opportunity for the sport to show as an industry what it's capable of doing to help move everything forward. How important is it, or was it, for Supercross to do that, to show that it's an industry leader in the sports world?
Ralph, it was extremely important. I can tell you, I think it may be just the racer in me or the racer in all of us, but hearing you say that NASCAR is going to be first irritates me a little bit. We were pushing hard, but we're happy to get the May 31st date. Again, I'll go back to my original statements. It was important for us to do this for the fans and for the industry. That was the goal. It was great. We wanted to be first. We always want to be first. But the real important thing was that we got back to racing to deliver a product to the fans and to help the industry in this time of uncertainty.
Dave, was there any pushback from any OEMs or riders specifically? And ultimately, was your answer to them is that this is happening with or without you? Did it ever get to that point?
No, it never got to that point. There was concern throughout on everyone's part, including ours. So we have been talking to the OEMs and the race teams on a bi-weekly basis. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 weeks during this 2.5 months that we did only one call, but for the most part, we've had bi-weekly calls with all the OEMs, all the major race teams, and just kept everyone informed. And a few of those calls were just, hey, we have nothing new to inform you of. Do you guys have any questions? And we would just, answer whatever questions they had, brainstorm a bit. But we've been in constant communication. There was never a time where, they pushed back that hard or it got to that point. But obviously throughout this process, there's been concern on everyone's part that we do this, but we do it the right way. So we feel confident that now moving into Salt Lake City, we've got a great plan in place and it's going to be done the right way.
Thank you.
Dave, on the rider invite part, how does it work if someone like Jimmy Dakotas who scored points on the 250 and the 450, or like a Chris Blows who scored points on a 450 but is contracted to race 250 East? Can they choose what they ride, or are you guys just putting them in one or the other?
Again, I'll defer to the AMA, but I would tell you it will probably they'll choose what they ride according to. I mean, obviously, if we have a full gate of 40 riders and a 250 rider, wants to race the 450, he won't be able to. But assuming that they have the points scored and we have the position, then yeah, they can choose themselves.
Hey, Dave. No, how big of a traditional sports fan you are, and the precedent that you guys are setting now by being one of the first major organizations to come back. Have you had contact with other sporting organizations to kind of share plans or insight of how you guys are going to do this? Because this is a huge undertaking, especially in the fact that it's no fans and everybody in one place at one time.
Yeah, no, we have. I don't want to call any organizations out specifically because I don't know that they would want me to, but I can tell you it's been refreshing, this whole environment that we find ourselves in. And I think this probably goes for hopefully everyone on the phone, but it's really pulled everyone together within the industry, not only the motorcycling industry, but just the sports industry in general. So we've been in communication with multiple leagues, and we've shared plans. They've shared their thoughts and ideas with us. But obviously all of us were letting the health departments, the CDC, and the governor's offices lead the way as far as the plans go. But there's been some great insight that we've gained from other leagues, and I think vice versa. I think we've been able to open their eyes to some things along the way. So to your point, I think this will be great, and I know already that there are a lot of leagues that are going to be watching NASCAR this weekend, and then us the following weekend get back at it, and we'll share whatever we need and help whoever we can.
Hey, Weech here back. Just throwing in another shout out to Yoshimura, our title sponsor here at the podcast. That includes the Chileo pedal. Get it at yoshimuracycling.com and the exhaust systems at yoshimura-rd.com. And you've got Racer X. Racer X, keep the lights on, man. Support our journalistic endeavors in motocross. We got to find a way to pay for living in Salt Lake City potentially for 3 weeks. Go to racerxonline.com/subscribe. I'm just kidding about the travel details because I have no idea how it's going to work. This is all a moving target, and it's moving very fast. But I'll be there at least for a few races. I know that. Let's go back to our media conference.
Guy B, I want to give you an opportunity to jump in.
Hey, Dave, do we have any confirmation on who's in or out? Are we going to be gaining some of the guys? Adam Cianciarulo was injured before. Is he coming back? Is Ken in, out? Eli in, out?
I'll defer to those teams, but I can tell you, I would expect to see them there.
Okay. I know when people are competitive, there's always trying to get an advantage or not. How have the teams been to work with? Getting two people to agree on anything is sometimes difficult.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And I as I said, we've had them all on the phone together. So this same exact thing that you're seeing, I don't know what your Zoom is, if it's the entire screen with everyone, but we've been on with the teams bi-weekly. So it is, and we're all competitive, but given the circumstance, everyone's pulled together. It definitely was not the same environment that we found ourselves in pre-COVID-19. So it's been great. I know I keep harping on it, but I cannot tell you how pleased I've been at how many different organizations have come together and cooperated along this way.
I've got one more. I've heard little bits from the teams of changes in purse structure or end of season payout type stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunately something that we had to do. It was the last thing that we wanted to do. We got with the AMA. We worked diligently to try to get to impact it as little as possible. But at the end of the day, we had to revise the 450 year-end points fund by an average of 22.5%, and the overall purse for these last 7 rounds, we revised it by an average of 17.5%. So, again, something we did not want to do. I go back to the fans. We rely heavily on fans as our revenue stream, and without fans, it really was just essential. And not that it makes it any more palatable, but if you guys have followed any of the other major leagues, most recently Major League Baseball, all of those players, unfortunately, are going to have to endure a salary reduction. So we kept it as small as we possibly could, but it was just a necessity in this environment.
Hey, Dave, question about the TV package. I mean, considering this is made for TV and everything at this point, can you just go into detail on the importance to the series of having a partner like NBC, the slots that you guys have, and if that determined the Sunday, Wednesday date selection?
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, not solely did it determine the Sunday, Wednesday, but we've been working with NBC from day one when we had to cancel Indianapolis March 14th. And obviously, you always want the best possible television window anytime you're looking to televise a sport. So Sunday was what it ended up being at this time, this part of the year. So we started with the Sunday, and then really after locking in the Sunday, it was just dictated by, all right, here's our window. We have until the end of June or July 4th, because that's the date of the first outdoor national that's on the schedule at the moment. So we wanted to give, as we always do, or try to do, give the teams and the riders ample time, typically 2 weeks between Supercross and outdoor nationals to, adapt from Supercross to outdoors. So we started with that Sunday, May 31st, and that was just the cadence that we had to follow in order to allow for all those things.
Okay, and then with NBC, is there anything extra that you guys are excited to do just to have this prime placement being the only live sport really going on a routine basis?
Definitely. I mean, I think that's key. So that the first race and the last race, you guys have seen the release, but those will be the first hour broadcast on NBC Sports Network, the second 2 hours on NBC Network. So that's going to be huge for us. And as you put it, I mean, we're really going to be on those Wednesdays and Sundays, one of, if not the only live sport on television. So we're hoping that we can gain a few new fans.
Dave, this is the best case scenario with 7 races, and congratulations on getting that done. Was there ever a plan to have less races that maybe open it up to more possibilities of this happening, or was it always 7 from the outset?
We always had 7 as the goal. We knew, we didn't really talk much about it, but we knew in the back of our mind, I can't remember who asked the question earlier, but we knew if for some reason we can't get 7 in, that would really be it, especially once the window in May and June opened up. So we went into it fully desiring to get 7 in, never really considered doing less. But with the knowledge that if something happens, that is a reality, and if it does, we'll
So these guys have to race like every race literally could be the last race of the season.
That's true. I never looked at it like that, but let's hope not. Let's hope we get these 7 in, and again, that's the goal.
Ferrandis, that could be some trouble for Ferrandis if you're part of Ferrandis, but go ahead.
Dave, for you've been doing this for so long, the Supercross game, with these 7 races going, for you yourself, what is the biggest concern with the short turnaround and everything else? Like, what are you most worried about yourself as a guy that's been doing it for 20 years?
My biggest concern is just the health and safety of everyone involved. I want to make sure that we do these and we deliver 7 incredible races to the fans and to the industry. But our biggest concern and top priority is the health and safety of all participants and all personnel working the event. So I think, Steve, that's definitely by far my largest concern. I mean, to your point, I've been doing this a long time, seen a lot, haven't ever seen this, but not much other than that really concerns me. I know we can do it. We've done it before, and just going to focus on the health and safety of everyone.
The good news part, you are going to save money on fireworks.
We are. You're right.
Okay.
Hey, as far as everything goes, the sprint car race that Ralph talked about in Iowa last weekend, the way that they did TV presentation, interviews, things like that on site, could we expect a massive appearance change on how this looks? No more podium presentations with massive groups together, or how would that go?
Yeah, back to the social distancing. Obviously, there will not be any podium celebrations with massive groups and hugging and high-fiving. There will be a little, difference in the overall production just due to the social distancing. But we are doing everything we can along with NBC to try to make it, as little difference from normal as possible. But the social distancing is the one thing that's going to dictate that.
Will riders be able to bring parents, girlfriends, wives? Do they have a set number of people they can bring, trainers?
Yeah, so there's a set number for each team and each rider. So in order to hit that number that we were approved for, we had to do that. So that'll go out with these packets. And but I think I was happy with the number of people that we were permitted to bring.
Dave, can I ask? You mentioned as stewards of the sport and trying to help people get their jobs back. I think you had already said this earlier. When you first had meetings with the teams, they unanimously or close to unanimously said they also want to do 17. Can you explain what their line of thinking was? Because when you have only 3 weeks, it opens up the possibility of doing only 3 races. But why did the teams express they also wanted to get 17 races in?
I think for the same reason. I think they understand that for the overall health of the sport as well as the fans. Like, someone mentioned it earlier, but I'm a huge baseball and NFL fan. And if my season was cut short by 3 or 4 events, I'd feel like I didn't get everything I expected. So I can say from a team perspective, I think that was their same sentiment. I think they thought, look, we signed up to do 17 rounds, and that's our goal. That's what we want to do. So to be honest, Jason, we never got into specifics. I can just tell you from day one, they all unanimously said, we need to get all 17 in. Even the Eli Tomacs and Ken Roxons.
Was there any, during this, obviously the teams are on board now, even a month ago, was there some concern with teams of their HR department or their legal department of sending people on planes or traveling to races, or some of their staff have been furloughed? Were there some of those obstacles that you were sensing on their side at one point?
Definitely. Those obstacles, I think are present with all of us. So that was the beauty of those team calls, those biweekly calls. We could share ideas and understand what organizations were having challenges and, either come up with solutions that we had found, or they shared solutions on their end. So overall, it's been just a collective group effort. I know I keep saying that, but it's just the truth. It's been a great learning experience as far as communication with all of us. And I think if you ask any of the teams, they tell you the same. The ones that were having challenges, we were able to work out those challenges, or at least plans to work out those challenges on the phone calls.
So at the moment, at least, there isn't an alarm of any major team saying, we don't know if we're going to be able to be ready by May 31st.
No, haven't heard that at all.
And one other thing I want to ask is, at one point we heard maybe the fall. Obviously, this is moving things up. Could you talk about some of the drawbacks of trying to have raced in September and October, and why this might be better?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. The situation was so fluid, and I think Jason, you wrote that. That's the new catchphrase. But
yeah,
the situation was extremely fluid, especially when it first happened. And honestly, my gut told me that there was no way we were going to be able to fit these in prior to outdoor motocross. And working with MX Sports and they were able to push back and give us this window. And even originally with that extended window, personally, I didn't feel like we were going to be able to do it, just because I was seeing all the hurdles dealing with different governor's offices or health departments. But we kept pushing. Obviously, things changed. Things got better. So it opened up this window, and we went from the fall to May, June quickly. Seemed like overnight. So that accelerated things a lot. But I think, back to your question, the challenge with racing in the fall is twofold. We started to get concerned that if outdoor motocross got pushed back, how far could we negotiate things? Like, obviously, MX Sports needs to get the number of races that they need in, and if that got pushed back even further, our window was going to tighten. And then along with that, the challenge, especially with Supercross, is as soon as these restrictions start to wane, it's going to be a frenzy for venues. So in the fall, when this thing hopefully starts to loosen up even more, it's going to be an extreme challenge to get into the venues that we race in, or really any venue in the country.
Dave, this is going to be a historical championship, one way or the other. It's going to be unlike any we've ever seen. As you look at this now with what the riders are going to have to do to clinch this championship, it would have been a great championship run had we been running through the normal process. But what's in front of us now as we get ready for this? Can you talk just a little bit about your excitement, your anticipation, what you expect to see, and how this is going to be different from a historical standpoint for the sport of Supercross as we try to decide these three championships now?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I mean, this has never happened before. We've gotten now to a 2.5 month break in between the Supercross championship. And I believe Guy B brought it up before, but guys who may not have been able to come back now can be back in the mix. Cooper Webb, who may not have been completely healthy, is now back in the mix. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing how these 2.5 months have been utilized by each of the riders and what their mindsets are coming back into it. It's something completely new to them. They've been, like all of us, their lives were interrupted in a split second, and we've all lived it. So that first few weeks, you're sitting around wondering what you're going to do, and then you start putting a plan together, and you start to execute that plan. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how these guys, went about it, what differences they chose to take. And I'm twofold. I'm excited just because the championship's been so extremely exciting between Eli and Ken, and you can't count out those other guys either. Cooper's coming on strong, so I'm excited for that. But I'm also excited to see how they can rebound and deal with this situation that no one's ever faced before. So I can't wait to get to Utah.
Hey, Dave, something you said earlier when the concept of maybe a rider has a positive test and you guys have backup plans that person just couldn't come. So clearly that shows, hey, this thing isn't all subject to one positive test ending the whole thing. You guys have backup plans should something go awry, right?
Definitely. So, I mean, individuals, not only riders, but, God forbid one of our staff tests positive or whatnot. There are backup plans in place to replace those folks if need be. But I think I mentioned it when the call started. But, if you have a positive test, you're going to have that 72-hour quarantine. And if you keep your temperature down, you get a retest. And if you're positive, then it's a 14-day quarantine in Salt Lake City. So, that we had to have backup plans in place due to those factors.
So that means, like, hey, this whole thing couldn't just fall apart because of one test, right? Like, this thing is pretty rock solid.
It's not going to fall apart because of one test. No.
Dave, you mentioned at Feld, they most of their revenue comes from spectators. And before we get a vaccine and people feel comfortable coming back to sporting events, I mean, Anaheim's only 7.5 months away. You guys looking forward? I know everything is right now focused on this, but what if the sport is much smaller going forward? I don't even know when you guys, get your venue set for 2021, but what's that plan going forward?
The plan is to continue as is. We're going to control what we can control. We're going to focus on what's in front of us, and we're going to move forward. Obviously this has taken up the majority of our time trying to get these final 7 races in 2020. But at the same time, we've got teams here, and I'm in meetings, not necessarily in the last week because it's been 100% of our focus, but over the last couple of months on 2021 and speaking to experts and trying to come up with alternative plans depending on what that scenario ends up being. Because to your point, Anaheim 1 is January, and that's California. They may have a completely different protocol in place than, say, Arlington. So that may be later on in the month. So we're going with the flow, and we're going to focus on what we can control, and we're going to plan as best we can, and we'll get
Dave, can you share anything from any of these stadiums as far as their ideas? Are they talking possibly every other seat, sneeze guards? Have they shared anything like that with you?
Chris, the ideas are all over. Any idea you can think of, I think has been brought up. Some you roll your eyes at, some sound pretty good. It's going to be a challenge, as you can imagine, because obviously Supercross is a different animal than NFL or Major League Baseball because of their huge television contracts and licensing deals and everything else. However, they're still heavily relying on that live fan attendance as well. So everyone's got their heads together. And it goes back to the question earlier, but everyone's got their heads together in the venue space and in the league space, trying to work through those different scenarios. I think the biggest challenge is just the differences in where we are with this pandemic regionally. That's really the challenge.
Hey, so let me jump in here just for a minute. I know that there are several folks that aren't on the video screen, but is there anybody that has a question that has not had an opportunity to do so yet?
Hey, this is Nate Ryan from NBCSports.com. I just had a question, Dave, on the COVID-19 testing. Are you anticipating, it sounds like you'll do about 1,000 tests or, something between 900 to 1,000, that you're capped at 900 people at the event?
Yeah, it's right around that number, Nate. It's probably a little closer to 800 because there are some folks local to obviously venue staff and such that have already been tested. So as far as the personnel flying in, it's probably closer to 800.
And will Supercross bear the cost of all of that?
We're working with the state health department and the university right now to see how that works out. But obviously, we're more than willing to bear the cost of that. And
then just finally, there's been other sports that have said they're just going to do health screenings and not the COVID-19 testing because they don't want to take away from available supply. I presume Supercross's stance here is that you guys feel as if this wouldn't detract from public testing for you guys to do this.
Correct, and that was our intent. We did not want to detract from public testing, and I could tell you just again. There were a few of the states and the venues we were speaking to that initially had told us we wouldn't have to do the COVID-19 test. But as we got closer, it was 100%. So I think as, PBR did an event earlier a few weeks ago, and then the UFC last weekend, I think it's almost goes without saying that sporting events will require this, at least for the near foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Anybody have a final question for Dave? Well, everybody, we are very excited to see all of you. We're very excited to resume racing. Obviously, we appreciate everybody being here today. Obviously, please feel free to reach out to me with any other questions. We will have more media times with Dave as we get closer to the outlets. Please be patient. All of these numbers that we've talked about and that return to racing plan that Dave has referred to, I mean, it's 27, 28 pages that is all being finalized today, all of which will be condensed for media. So be patient. We will have our media guidelines, and those who will be able to be on site, more than likely that'll be coming this weekend. As a reminder, we would love to have your support on the Monster Energy Supercross ESX event, which is tomorrow. We're very excited about that. We have a lot of great athletes that are participating in that. So any additional support you guys can help, that will be on NBCSN tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern. And then after that initial broadcast, we will have that available on all of our channels as well. So just a reminder for that. And again, we'll be in touch with more. We're excited to be back.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate the time, and it's great to see all your faces. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
Boom. There you go. An hour with Dave Prater with all the details on Supercross's return. Yes, that e-Supercross did take place on television on Saturday over the weekend. You can go to the Monster Energy Supercross YouTube channel and see the replay of that. We have a breaking news link on RacerX Online. It's actually pretty fun to watch. Not only are the riders racing in the event, playing the video game, but you've got Daniel Blair asking them questions as they're doing it, and you quickly find out it's almost impossible for these guys to play the game and answer questions from Daniel Blair. Or maybe they just hate talking to Daniel Blair. I mean, that's totally understandable. But it's a nice little watch, especially it culminates with Adam Enticknap and Adam Cianciarulo in a takeout fest on the last lap of the main event in the video game. That's pretty cool. So we have that again if you want to watch it through the RacerX site. Breaking news about the e-Supercross. Benny Bloss taking the win. Really good in the video game world. So that's it for this week's show. Thanks to Yoshimura. Well, I shouldn't actually say, sorry, I shouldn't say this week's show. We have a ton of podcasts coming because we're going to get a ton of perspective from a ton of different riders on this Supercross plan. That's coming soon. So several shows coming this week. Shout out to Yoshimura. Go to yoshimura-rd.com. More than 6 decades of research and development into 4-stroke exhaust systems. They've got what you need for your machine. And if your machine is a 2-wheeled bicycle, they've got it too with that Chaleo pedal. Go to yoshimuracycling.com, and all this stuff is, made in the USA. So you want to shop local, you want to support the industry, Yoshimura, not a bad way to do it. American jobs there. Let's keep them all going during this very odd downturn, which we're now seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. We're having racing again. Hopefully soon there'll be fans on board to watch it in person as we try to dig our way out from this. All right, folks, thanks for listening.